have colors as well, so like the nuts and seeds. This is the Environmental Working Group's list of foods that are the most important to eat organic. So organically grown fruits and vegetables and other foods as well, but basically all foods have the potential to be organically grown, have been shown in studies to contain higher levels of certain nutrients, like higher levels of vitamin C, higher levels of antioxidants, higher levels of calcium or magnesium. Mainly probably due to the fact that of the soil that they're grown in. You know, we always say a food can only be as nutrient rich as the soil that it's grown in. So if the soil is deficient, then the plant will be deficient as well. So organically grown foods tend to be grown in soil that is more fertile and rich in nutrients, so that the foods become more rich in their nutrients. And but you know, when we look at, you know, how important is it really? Do we have to eat everything grown organically? I mean, gosh, that can get expensive. And so what the Environmental Working Group did, they're a nonprofit advocacy group that, and their mission is to educate consumers on toxins in the environment. And so they do a number of different reports and things having to do with different types of toxins. But the one that they've been doing probably for the longest is the one where they gather data, it's third-party laboratory data, to find out what are the foods that have the most pesticide and herbicide residues on them when they end up at the grocery stores. So, for example, the way that the testing is done, an Environmental Working Group doesn't do the testing, they just get the data once the testing has been done. Usually it's the USDA that orders the testing, and then they have third-party labs that do it. But basically what they do is they take the, I think there's a total of 46 or 48 different produce items, and it's all fruits and vegetables. They haven't quite done this for other foods like nuts or seeds, but they take these items and they get all the data, and then they rank which ones had the most pesticide and herbicide residues on them after they've been tested. And the way they're tested, by the way, is they say they do what you would do at yourself. Like if you went to the market and bought apples or bought grapes or broccoli, you would come home and you would wash it in whatever way you would wash it. You'd either rinse it off, or maybe you would use a veggie wash. And then if it's a type of thing that you would peel before you eat, like if you peel a potato or peel a carrot, they do that too before they test, because they want to really see like how much of the pesticide and herbicide residue are on it when it is being consumed by the general public. And so once they're all that's done, they make it table ready. So they do what you would do with it, and then they test it, and then the Environmental Working Group gets the results. And then they start looking at it and they rank it. And they have 46 different produce items, and so they rank them 1 to 46. And so the ones that had the most residue, they call those the dirty dozen, or the dirty 12. And they say those ones, if you eat those frequently, you probably should be buying those ones organically grown, because they have the most pesticide residue and herbicide residue on them to the levels that could potentially be harmful when eaten on a regular basis. You're like exposing yourself to a lot of different pesticides and herbicides. In their report, they usually write a full analysis of all of the information that they gathered from these tests, and they, you know, oftentimes write, you know, we saw that one single grape had like 15 different herbicides on it. Because this is one of the things that, like, most people don't even think about this, but you know, the foods are, if they're being grown with pesticides and herbicides, they're not just spraying one on there, they're using a whole bunch of different ones, because they're trying to do different things. They're trying to get rid of the pests, they're trying to get rid of the weeds, they're trying to get rid of, you know, maybe some other like little soil bacteria, or something. So they're spraying them with all sorts of different things. So to consider that one single grape had 15 different chemicals on it is, that can add up, and they have shown that pesticides and herbicides can have negative impact on our health, especially to women who are, of childbearing age. It could impact their fertility. And if they do get pregnant, it could affect the fetus. So, and they also know that, this also affects hormones as well. They call them hormone disruptors. And so that's also another concern. So limiting exposure to the dirty dozen. These are if you eat these regularly. I would say, like, let's say, for example, cherries. Well, maybe you don't eat cherries very often. So if you don't eat them very often, it might be okay as long as you wash them off, as much as you can. We have to realize that we can't wash everything off. That sometimes it's internal to the food. But if you don't eat it that often, it's probably not as important to buy organic. But if these are things you like and you eat regularly, like I know people who love strawberries, or who eat a lot of spinach. They like to put spinach in their smoothies, or sometimes they juice the spinach. And so that would be really important to get organic spinach if you're doing that. A lot of people are into celery juice these days. And that would be definitely important to get organic, since celery is one of the items on the dirty dozen list. Then what's over here on the clean 15 list, this is the bottom of the entire 46 items. So they look at those and they found that the last 15 and the ones at the very bottom of the list had the least amount of pesticide and herbicide residues. Some of them really have very insignificant amounts, so that they're not really as contaminated, and it's not as important to eat those organically grown if you can't afford to. So the idea of the dirty dozen in the clean 15 list is to strategize on budget, really. And also, just to make you aware of which ones may have more pesticide and herbicide residues than others. A couple of things we notice about the clean 15 list, this isn't true across the board, but for some items, like for example, avocado and pineapple and papaya, those have pretty thick peels, and the type of peel that we typically don't eat. So the peel tends to protect them. So let's say you're a lover of strawberries, but you're also a lover of avocados, and you only have so much money to spend on your grocery budget. So you might say, well, I'll opt to buy the strawberries organically because they're the most contaminated item. But I love avocados, and I guess I don't really have to buy those organic because they're on the clean 15 list, and they're, typically not very contaminated at all. And so that's kind of the way that the list is supposed to work. This comes out of the Environmental Working Group. Their website is ewg.org. And you can go on there and, well, you can use this one that you guys have a copy now. So you can just clip this out and have it. It's designed to be a wallet, to put in your wallet. That's why they make it like this. They make a little cut along the line type thing. And so you can have it. They used to have it on their app. They do have an app. It's called the, I forgot what the app's called, but they used to have it on their app, and they don't have this on their app anymore. And I'm not really sure why. It was really convenient when they had it. But now we're back to the wallet guide. So, but it's really very good. I don't have this memorized. And it changes every year, by the way. They do a new one. This one, the 2021, just came out in, I believe it was in April. So it's just brand new list. But what we tend to see is that we tend to see the same foods just shifting position from year to year. Like last year, apples were in the #1 position on the dirty dozen, and strawberries were, I think, #3. And now we've seen strawberries go up to #1, and apples are down to #5. But we tend to still see strawberries and apples on the list. pretty well from year to year. And the bell peppers, they've been on the list from year to year as well. So they just kind of shift positions, I guess, depending on you know, how many herbicides and pesticides are found on them. But you know, you might also notice that these items tend to be the ones where you do eat the peels, or they have really thin little peels, like cherries and peaches that we do tend to eat, and they're just more vulnerable. They suck up those herbicides and pesticides much more easily than something like broccoli or cabbage.
Hey Dee, real quick.
Yeah.
Savannah has 2 questions. She says, what happens to the nutrients of vegetables once we cook them? And then